everyone. Thank you for coming back to my channel. This one I'm going to be calling PO number 9. And in PO number 9, what I'm going to be talking about is self-interest of a particular person. Everyone in the world functions and has things that will appeal to their self-interest. And the self-interest of an individual is something that has a tendency to benefit him personally and to make him better off in the society than he is at the current time. And sometimes that comes about by supporting people that are a little bit marginal. They'll give you an advantage over what other people have to give them support. And other times there will be people who have causes that they want to push forward. And an example of that is the causes I have. And we'll be doing a probably PO 10, 11, and 12 on the professional politicians that I've talked about quite a bit, because professional politicians are a roadmap to end democracy. Democratic communities fail sometimes because the tyrants are able to subjugate the political system so that they can take over. And once they obtain the authority, they do what they can to eliminate any competition. That includes restricting the access to news. And all we have to do is look at what the founding fathers of the United States of America thought was important and listed in the Constitution of the United States of America. And freedom of press was one of the things that they talked about, because they knew that when you could control what people hear, you can also control how they act. So dictators want to subjugate the news to their point of view. And when people are able to do that, they do gain an advantage. And some of the advantages that I talk about in self-interest is, if people are very good about it, they'll even get hired by some of the major networks to be a newscaster. And they then slant the news to the way that the company that's hiring them would like to have the news portrayed to the public. So when you talk about unbiased opinions, it's pretty hard to get that unless you do it with maybe on Google asking for AI. You'll get an opinion that may be neutral or informative about different ways that people think and accomplish the purposes that they're trying to accomplish. And in PO number 9, that's exactly what we're talking about. Sometimes people will see a benefit for them doing a certain thing, and if they did not do that certain thing, they would not get the benefit. So people sometimes will modify what they think is right and wrong in order to get a better life by having an advantage that other people may not be able to participate in. And so if they can't participate in the area that you have the advantage in, then you basically have an opportunity to do things that other people don't have to do. And some of the other things that push people into doing things that are for their interest is in a particular job or work. They may have advantages by going along with what the foreman or general foreman thinks, and be able to become a foreman and make more money because they agree with what the others also think. And so, even though they have opposite opinions sometimes, they're willing to subjugate their opinion so they can have the job. And there are many, many ways that people take advantage of in self gratification. You are able to come up with different ways of thinking. People that come up with different ideas in thinking and want to make money on those have to put it together in a manner that actually entices the public to go along with what they're trying to sell. Because whether it is merchandise or an opinion or some kind of project that needs to be done, people that gain public opinion on what they're trying to promote is something that will gain traction and help them to put forth their ideas and therefore end up with some opportunities that are definitely linked to self interest. The Constitution of the United States of America has basically three major articles, and that was so they could split up the government so no one section of the government would have enough power or control to take over the entire government. So they broke it up into three pieces, which they referred to as the presidency, the Congress, and this court, the Supreme Court. And by splitting the legal from the legislative and the executive branch, each branch has their own duty and self-interest that they're in charge of, but they cannot infringe on the benefits of the other two branches of government. That is one of the guarantees that the founding fathers of the United States of America created so that we would have a country that would not quickly go democracy into being a dictatorship. Their interest was to eliminate all dictators, to try a new form of government that would make the people the ones responsible for their own lives and the rules in their life. Now, in order to make that work right, you can't have the same president forever. They've actually made a restriction now for 2 terms because George Washington thought that going more than 2 terms would create a problem. And we did have Franklin Roosevelt that got elected for 4 terms. That's what encouraged the Congress to make the rule. But that rule shows that my talking about professional politicians is supported by the United States of America, because they would not have restricted the term of office of presidency to 2 terms unless that was a way that people could take over the government and become a dictatorship. Well, if that were true with the presidency, it's also true with the other 2 branches of government. Now, the branch of government that is the most tenuous is the judicial branch of government, because they pretty much are elected for their whole life, particularly on the Supreme Court. When you make it that far and you get to be a member of the Supreme Court, where there's only 9 of them, that means that each member of the Supreme Court represents more than 10% of the country, if you split them up among the 100% of the country. So we don't want anything to be so strong that it twists the government so that we end up not having a government that is basically promotes freedom and liberty and independence. We want that to be to every citizen as much as it can possibly be, without infringements and restrictions on the individuals. And some of the things I'm going to be talking about, of course, will be the IRS and different other government agencies. We cannot have those because that's the same as a professional politician. No one has a job with the government. A government is of the people, for the people, and by the people. That means anyone that working for the government represents all of the people. They can't just be interested in collecting taxes or anything else. And there's a simple way around it, and that is through contracts. You have people bid on it. That way we do not eliminate the competition. And the cheapest bid for the kind of work the legislators think the government should be having authority over the people will be done through contract. Because with a government agency now, that is just the best way to go beyond what was invented by the founders of the Constitution. People start doing their self-interest, they have the power of the government, and they twist everything until it benefits them and their industry more than the people. That's why we have to go back to the Constitution, see what was envisioned by the founding fathers, and eliminate all of the distractions that have come into effect since that time. And even at the time when the 13 original colonies were going to vote on the Constitution, there was a problem. Many of the people in the different colonies thought there weren't enough freedom guaranteed in the Constitution. So they came up with a Bill of Rights. And so they have, initially, I think it was only 10 things that were in there that were basically referred to as amendments to the Constitution. And the Constitution describes what the rules of government are. And in the Bill of Rights, that was to guarantee that the government did not end up with too much power, even if they collaborated together to silence the people and their liberties. So the Bill of Rights had to be approved before some of the states would sign on to this new government situation. And so we know that there are a lot of ways at any given time that people can divert what is expected for all the people through their personal self-interest. The self-interest of an individual differs from the liberty of everyone. When you talk about the liberty of everyone, you're talking about rules that all of the people have to abide by and the government cannot infringe upon. When we talk about personal interest, self-interest comes about when a person sees ways to do certain things that are in his own interest. And in order to make that work, that means none of the self-interest things can interfere with the rules of a free and equal society. So it has to be also monitored at all times to see what self-interest each individual has, and does it really infringe upon other people's constitutional rights. And if the answer is it does, then that person cannot engage in that kind of activity. But if it is something that is beyond what the rules and regulations are for every single citizen of the country, then people can engage in activities of self-interest and gain advantages that other people do not have or have not thought about. And that goes on every day in almost every industry, and it continues to grow. But as it continues to grow, we have to make sure that it's not a cancer that grows on the liberty of all of the people. Because more important than any individual's self-interest, we have to make sure liberty of the people is not infringed upon. So if it is, then it has to be acknowledged. It has to be clear lines drawn on what is right and what is wrong, what is acceptable and what is not, and communicated to the people so they stay within the limits of what needs to be done so that the dictatorships cannot use the self-interest of individuals to gain a foothold to help them destroy the democracy and take over for themselves. And so we have to always be aware of the balance that has to take place between the self-interest that a person is trying to obtain and where that self-interest crosses the boundary and becomes an impediment upon the freedom of the people. And we need to have people that are aware of what both of these limitations should be, and that should be the type of things that is done by the legislature when it is made clear that some things that are done as self-interest of the individual is affecting the liberty of the people. And then laws are made against it, and people now will stay away from engaging in that form of activity. It lead to a particular person's personal self-interest in that area. Now, self-interest isn't always a negative thing. It almost every human being engages in it at one time or another. And what that means that they're doing is they may be taking an issue that they think is right or wrong, or is they're neutral about a subject, and take an opinion that may be contradictory to what they actually think. But they're willing to do that because they know by doing it, then they get an advantage by moving forward with this self gratification system. And self gratification is used by just about everyone: employers, people looking for jobs, trying to get jobs. There's thousands of ways that people can participate in the idea of having their basically self gratification. Self gratification is something that comes along by any person at any time that modifies in any way what he thinks is right or wrong, or is something that should be promoted by people or should not be promoted by people. And he modifies some of the areas that are in what we would refer to as the gray area. They're not absolutely right, they're not absolutely wrong, they could go either way. And by participating in that and ending up with a benefit that helps them over and above what they would have had otherwise, is exactly what this is about. And it is not going to draw a conclusion that people should not do that, because they should. But there are also limits to how far a person should go. And that is why I want to get into talking about this as a public opinion number 9, because people can have a public opinion about something that is totally opposite what you're thinking about getting involved in. And if the public opinion is against you and you get involved in it, it's quite possible that you will get the opposite effect of what you were trying to accomplish. Instead of having a little bit of a benefit by going along with the different idea, you may have a very large detriment by going along with something that you did not totally have strong feelings about one way or the other. And so what we want to do is be aware that there is such a thing as self-gratification. Everyone should be aware that it should have limits, that you don't want to help someone be able to do anything that will ultimately infringe upon your freedom in society. Because as America knows, we have a system that I guess is about as free as any system in the world. And it's as a result of that and the way the founding fathers set it up, it has become the most powerful country in the most short amount of time that we are aware of on the face of the planet. But there are also limitations that come along. As my videos have said, we are sliding away from independence and freedoms, and we're letting the government take those away from us. So they actually use the things that need to be stopped against us in order to maintain or create a stronger environment for them to succeed in their dictatorship. But we want to just make sure that everyone is aware of the different things that do come up that will affect the self-interest of the whole community by the self-interest of an individual. And the self-interest of an individual is twisted sometimes in several ways. Sometimes dictators do exploit a social evil or a social unpopular thing that's going on in order to take advantage of their ability to move forward to create the restrictions on others that will allow them to become a dictator for the community and eventually for the country. And so there are many things that allow dictators to take advantage of the public at large, and we have to be aware of those things so that we don't necessarily go along with them when they're happening. And we know that there are a lot of things that go on in a community that basically does modify what the goal of a free society would be. And some of those are the common strategies for seizing power. Exploiting crisis is the one that I talked about, having things going on in the government. Democratic backsliding, if they can create a process where they basically use the system to create more power than the individual has, and then step into the government and take over that power to create the dictatorship that they're looking for. And sometimes that comes through legislative obstruction. In legislative obstruction, it's when the legislature or the parliament, or whatever country is making the rules, make so many rules that a dictator can move in and use those to diminish the liberty of the individual. And we have sometimes it's what is referred to as a cult of personality. And in that, what they're doing is they're trying to control the media with propaganda that will make them look good, even though what they're doing is against the country. And another thing that they'll often do is create a scapegoat, so when the citizens complain about it, he can always point to someone else and say they're the ones that did it. So we want to make sure that any individual or section of government that has maintained too much control in the society is only a system inviting dictators to come on board and try to take over the community or the country by utilizing the restrictions that other people have put in place by just stepping in to the government and taking control. The work has already been done for them, and they can now just take over and move forward with the type of community that is a dictatorship and not a freedom for the people. And that's why I keep using the term a government of the people, for the people, and by the people, because that means we don't want to have people with self-interest doing the things in the government, because they're going to build for themselves interest and benefits. And I've already discussed Barbara Boxer and Dianne Feinstein. That's exactly what they did when they were allowed to do what is referred to by anyone else doing it as insider trading on the stock market. And as I have said before, they've made millions of dollars. And some of the people I've quoted that to said they've made billions of dollars. So, there can be an unlimited amount of benefit a person can have by just cheating a little bit. And so what we want to do is we don't want people to cheat, even if it is in the self-interest of that individual. When it gets into the area of cheating, lines have to be drawn and rules have to be made that allow the people to stop the self-interest of the individual, even though it would benefit that individual significantly. So we want to continue being aware there is self-interest, and that drives a lot of people's, if not everyone's, actions when they decide to do things that can affect the government and the freedom of the people. And I don't know if I've been going my 20 to 30 minutes yet, but if not, I'll add a little bit to it. But in the meantime, if I had, I'll have to say that we're getting close to the end. So if there's anything I've said here that you agree with, if you could encourage other people just to watch the Mel Phillips videos. I have 50 to 60 of them on YouTube now, and they're all 20 to 30 minutes long. And so I want you to share those with your friends so that we can stay on top of the things that benefit our society today. We don't want to be part of the group that erodes the freedoms that we as individuals have, and create a system where our children or grandchildren will not be able to enjoy what we've had. We know that freedom is far better and works more efficiently and makes everyone better off in the society when it's utilized. And we don't want people have to try to stop the dictatorship or people who are trying to take over the government so that their self-interest is above the interest of the people at large. We want the majority of the people having the things they need and not having all of the prosperity going to a few. We want to be able to move forward so that everyone benefits a little bit, not some people benefiting a lot and others not even benefiting at all. So I want you to continue to be aware of the self-interest when you talk about any other subject, and make sure you don't get wrapped up in a system that is going to help someone else use your self-interest to create their dictatorship. And with that, I will have to say this is the end of PO number 9, which is self-interest. This is the end of PO number 9, which is the end of the talk on personal interest. And with that, I look forward to seeing you on PO number 10. Goodbye for now.